Tupac had no choice but to accept Suge Knight's deal. During their meeting, he told Suge all about the shooting at Quad Studios and shared his theory that Biggie and Diddy had set him up. Tupac made it clear to Suge that if he signed with Death Row, Suge had to have his back and go after Diddy for him, as Pac was determined to take down Bad Boy Records. The same day, Suge left the prison and flew to New York City for the 1995 Source Awards at Madison Square Garden. Death Row won the award for Soundtrack of the Year for the movie Above the Rim. Suge went on stage to accept the award and gave a speech that essentially ignited the East Coast-West Coast feud. In his speech, Suge mocked Diddy for ad-libbing on tracks and dancing in music videos. He invited any artists who didn't want a producer all over their videos to come sign with Death Row. While Suge didn't name Diddy directly, it was obvious who he was referring to, and that's what sparked the beef between Bad Boy Records and Death Row. It didn't take long for tensions to turn violent. A few weeks later, Diddy and Suge were both in Atlanta for Jermaine Dupri's birthday party. The crews ended up getting into a fight outside, and shots were fired. Jake Robles, a member of the Mobb Deep crew and a Death Row employee who worked as Suge's bodyguard, was tragically killed in the altercation. No one knows for sure who pulled the trigger, but several witnesses, including Jermaine Dupri, claimed it was Diddy's bodyguard. Suge quickly blamed Diddy, which made the feud even more personal. In 2003, Diddy's former business partner, Kirk Burks, claimed that Diddy had sanctioned the murder of Jake Robles and that a local sheriff, who later died in a car accident, had identified Diddy's bodyguard, Anthony Wolf Jones, as the shooter. However, another one of Diddy's former bodyguards, Gene Deal, denied this, stating that the murder had nothing to do with Diddy. In an interview, Gene said that on the same night, Suge had also slapped Jermaine Dupri, who was hiding upstairs when Jake was shot. John also claimed that the real killer was a man named Jason, who was angry because Suge and Jake had been talking disrespectfully to his girl. According to Gene, everyone relied on Wolf to fuel the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, though he admitted he wasn't there at the time and was just repeating what he had heard. No one really knows who killed Jake Robles, but Suge blamed Diddy, which only made the feud more intense. Soon after Suge's friend was killed, Tupac signed his deal with Death Row and finally posted bail. Once out, Tupac began working on his next album while the East Coast-West Coast feud continued to intensify. Meanwhile, Diddy kept expanding Bad Boy Records and, in 1996, signed Mase and the LOX to the label. Mase had already gained some attention in Harlem after forming a group called Children of the Corn with his childhood friend Cam'ron and other local rappers, including Big L. When the group broke up, Mase decided to go solo. His sister introduced him to a guy named Cut Love, who was Biggie's road manager. Cut took Mase to a rap convention in Atlanta to meet Diddy. At the convention, Mase spit a freestyle that impressed Diddy so much that he offered him $250,000 to sign with Bad Boy. Around the same time, Diddy discovered the LOX after hearing one of their demo tapes. The LOX, a group from Yonkers, consisted of Jadakiss, Styles P, and Chic Louch. They had worked on a track with Jazzo, a rapper and producer known for mentoring Jay-Z. The song became an underground hit in New York, and Mary J. Blige heard it, becoming a big fan of the LOX. She passed the tape along to Diddy, who then offered them a deal with Bad Boy. Mase and the LOX joined Bad Boy right as the East Coast-West Coast feud was escalating. A few months after Tupac was released from jail, he dropped the legendary diss track Hit 'Em Up, where he fired back at Who Shot Ya by taking shots at Biggie and the entire Bad Boy camp. Tupac RS first off, peaks your mine wuck, and the clique You Claim West Side When We Ride come equipped with gang you claim to be a player, but I, your wife. We bust on bad boys. For Life plus Puffy, Trying to See Me Weak. Hearts I Rip Biggie's Smalls and Junior Mafia some mark ass. P claimed that he had sex with Biggie's wife Faith Evans. Faith was a singer signed to Bad Boy Records, and Tupac paid her to fly out to California to record a verse for his album. Faith didn't know that Tupac was signed to Death Row at the time, but when she asked Biggie if he was okay with it, he told her to go get the money. So she flew out to LA to record, which is when Tupac claims they hooked up. Faith denies that she actually slept with Tupac, although she admits that he tried to get her to give him head in his hotel room while giving her money. After the feature, Faith realized that Tupac had only used her to get back at Biggie. There's another wild theory suggesting that Tupac also slept with Diddy's girlfriend, Kim Porter, and that Diddy was aware of it. In 2024, a man named Chris Todd published a book called Kim's Lost Words, A Journey for Justice from the Other Side on Amazon. The book was said to be a collection of diary entries Kim had written before her death, which were saved on a flash drive. The book contained all sorts of wild stories about Diddy, and people began buying it like crazy. In one of the chapters, Kim allegedly claimed that she and Diddy were in an open relationship and that she had hooked up with Tupac. When Diddy found out, he suggested they all. Tupac rejected the idea, saying he wasn't gay. Diddy kept pushing for it, which made Tupac extremely uncomfortable. And from that point on, they hated each other. When Tupac bragged about sleeping with Diddy's girl on Hit 'Em Up, Diddy was furious, and this could have been one of the reasons he wanted Tupac dead. It's just a theory, and Kim's family has claimed the book is fake. But considering all the other stories about Diddy, it doesn't seem that hard to believe. On the outro of Hit 'Em Up, Tupac made it clear that he was ready to smoke with anyone connected to Bad Boy, saying, staff, record label, and as a crew. And if you're down with Bad Boy, then Hit 'Em Up remains one of the most savage diss tracks ever. It might have been a factor in Tupac's death, which occurred just 3 months later, on September 7, 1996. Tupac and Suge Knight were leaving the MGM Grand in Las Vegas when a car pulled up next to them at a stoplight and started firing shots. Both were hit, but Suge survived while Tupac was pronounced dead at the hospital. A few days later, the exact details of what happened remained unclear, but one of the main theories was that it was tied to the East Coast-West Coast feud, a theory that still lingers today in 2023. Police arrested a man named Keith D, who claims he was in the car with the killer on the night of Tupac's murder. For years, Keith D had been claiming in interviews that Diddy offered him $1 million to have Tupac killed. Keith D was a member of the Compton Crips and the uncle of Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, the main suspect in Tupac's murder. Baby Lane, who was in conflict with several Bloods connected to Death Row, had been jumped by Suge Knight, Tupac, and other Death Row affiliates shortly before Tupac's murder. When they spotted him in the lobby of the MGM Grand after the Mike Tyson fight, Keith D claimed that Diddy had already offered the Compton Crips $1 million to kill Suge Knight and Tupac. After the fight, they decided to follow Suge and Tupac, waiting for the right moment to take their shot. In a recorded interview with a former LAPD officer, Keith D stated that it was Baby Lane who fired the shots that killed Tupac. Keith D had been on record since at least 2008 claiming that Diddy was the one who ordered the hit, but for years the case remained unsolved. It wasn't until other accusations about Diddy started to surface that Keith D was finally arrested and charged with Tupac's murder. However, by that time, Baby Lane had already been dead for years, having been killed in an unrelated gang shooting in 1998. Tupac's death marked the beginning of the end for Death Row Records. Suge was arrested for a probation violation after jumping Baby Lane the night of the murder and was sentenced to 9 years in prison. But that still wasn't the end of the East Coast-West Coast feud. On March 9, 1997, Biggie was killed while leaving a party in Hollywood Hills. He was in a black SUV with Lil Cease and other members of Junior Mafia, while Diddy was in the car behind them. As they stopped at a red light, a Chevy Impala pulled up next to Biggie's car. The driver rolled down the window and began firing shots from a 9mm pistol. Biggie was shot 4 times and later died at the hospital. His murder remains unsolved, but most believe it was connected to the East Coast-West Coast feud and was seen as payback for Tupac's death. Greg Kading, the same LAPD officer who interviewed Keith D about his involvement in Tupac's murder, claimed that Biggie was killed by Wardell Poochie Foe, a member of the mob Piru with ties to Suge Knight. However, there's another theory suggesting that Diddy may have also been behind Biggie's murder. Multiple people told Rolling Stone that shortly before his death, Biggie was attempting to leave Bad Boy Records. At the time of his murder, Biggie was in a legal battle with the label over the rights to his music. According to one music executive, when Biggie tried to reclaim the rights to his publishing, Diddy told his lawyers, "I would never give it up until I'm dead and my bones are dust." One theory suggests that Diddy decided to have Biggie killed before he could leave Bad Boy, staging it to appear as payback for Tupac's death. There's no concrete evidence linking Diddy to Biggie's murder, but given everything else that has come to light about him, anything is possible. Biggie's second album, Life After Death, was released 16 days after his death. It became a massive hit, debuting at #1 on the Billboard charts after selling nearly 700,000 copies in its first week. The album featured appearances from other Bad Boy artists like Mace, the LOX, and even Diddy himself. A few months prior, Diddy made his debut as a rapper under the name Puff Daddy, releasing the single Can't Nobody Hold Me Down, which spent 28 weeks on the Billboard charts. Later that same year, Diddy dropped his debut album No Way Out, which featured multiple appearances from Biggie and other bad boy artists like Mace, the LOX, 112, and Faith Evans. No Way Out was another massive hit for Bad Boy, spending several weeks at the top of the Billboard charts and even winning a Grammy for Best Rap Album that year. With Biggie gone, Diddy continued to push other artists on the label. Mace released his debut album Harlem World in October 1997, which also performed incredibly well, eventually going quadruple platinum after selling nearly 5 million copies. In 1998, the LOX released their album Money, Power, Respect, which peaked at number 3 on the Billboard charts and is now regarded as a classic in hip-hop. Around the same time, Diddy began hosting his famous all-white parties in the Hamptons. These events attracted everyone from music industry executives to celebrities and sports team owners, essentially anyone who was wealthy and famous. However, there were also many shady activities taking place at these parties, and it's where many of Diddy's alleged crimes are said to have occurred. We're just getting started. There's so much more to Diddy's story, and you won't believe what's coming next. The next video is on the way, packed with more epic moments, wild stories, and all the legendary moves that made him who he is today. You won't want to miss it, so stick around because the best is still ahead. Thanks for watching! If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you even more exciting videos in the future. Stay tuned for our next upload while we value your support.